Roxanne. So let me,
Maybe I didn't hit send. I could have done that.
oh, I mean, I got a couple things from you.
I'm
Oh,
sending it right
oh, no.
now.
That's just the link. Okay.
All right, be on good behavior now.
Okay, Terry, I just sent it. Oh,
Okay.
Yes, we can see on your email.
I know. I was like, I don't want those pop-ups on that screen.
All right, our IT manager will show you how you can remove those.
I got it, Roxanne. Thank you.
Good.
Perfect.
Okay. Are we waiting for Commissioner Freeman?
Yeah, I think I mean, maybe we could wait another minute. If, you know, obviously, if you want to proceed beforehand, you certainly can, but I think she said she'll be here any minute. If we could wait, she'd appreciate it.
Well, we can get through items 1 through 4. We don't have anything significant until 6, so why don't we get the administrative stuff out of the way?
We could do that.
I like the way he thinks.
Okay, then I'll do that. The Lakefront Committee meeting in the Park District of Highland Park is called to order on Thursday, November 4th, 2021 at 4:01 p.m. Pursuant to Section 7E of the Open Meetings Act, the President of the Board of Park Commissioners has made a finding that it is not practical or prudent to hold in-person meetings because of the COVID-19 public health emergency. Neither the elected officials nor the public will be allowed to attend regular committee meetings in person, but will participate virtually. Links to the virtual meeting can be found on the Park District website. Roxanne, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Bernstein,
Here.
Commissioner Freeman will be joining us later. Commissioner Kaplan,
I'm here.
Vice President Grossberg,
Here.
and President Ruttenberg.
Here as well.
Okay, thank you. Executive Director Rooms, are there any additions to the agenda?
No additions, Vice President Grossberg.
Okay. And then do we want to, okay, so Executive Director Rooms, is there anyone from the public attending tonight's meeting?
We do have 7 attendees at the current time.
Okay, so anyone wishing to speak will need to use the raised hand function in Zoom to indicate that they would like to speak. The board secretary will call on registrants who have activated the raised hand feature in alphabetical order. At this time, I would like to wait just another minute and see if Commissioner Freeman joins, and then we can get on with number 5.
Well, when Commissioner Freeman joins us, we do have one attendee who would like to provide public comment, and that would be Laura Knapp.
Okay, let's just wait till 4:05 and then we'll just go.
Well, why don't we defer public comment and go and dismiss the approval of the Lakefront Committee minutes on the agenda?
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the Lakefront Committee minutes from
So
September
moved.
9th? What?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion, everybody's okay with that? Okay, motion
All in
carried.
favor? Yeah.
Aye.
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 I'll abstain because I wasn't at the meeting nor did I review the minutes.
Okay. 30 seconds and then we're moving on.
Okay. Well, both Laura and her husband would like to speak. They're the only ones with their hand raised at this time.
Okay, 15 seconds.
Do you have a countdown clock?
I think we heard that last meeting. We don't, but we'll work on that.
Yeah, a little icon up in the corner ticking down.
Doot, 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 bing, bing. Okay. May I have a member of the Knapp family be the first to speak here?
We'll let Laura speak first since she had her hand raised first.
Okay.
Here I am. I am now unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for taking my comment. I'd want to address Director Romes and the staff and all Park Board commissioners. The North Shore Yacht Club board of directors and members very enthusiastically support your efforts to provide a temporary fix for the broken boat launch at the Park Avenue boating facility. We think this is the right move to show the citizens and Lake Michigan boaters that the Park District can move forward with repairing boating activities at the site. Getting a boat launch active again at Park Avenue will be really amazing. And one, it will allow the North Shore Yacht Club to launch safety boats quickly and easily for all of our sailing, kayak, and SUP classes that we hold all summer. Two, it will provide safety boats for our two major invitational events, the Summer's End Regatta sailboat race and the Beach to Beach paddle race. In 2021, we did have to ask people to provide private boats, and they had to launch out of Winnetka Lake Forest. Number three, allow citizens and local boaters the opportunity to launch closer to home, and it allows the Park District to receive revenue that is dearly needed. And four, it'll show boaters that the Park District is committed to providing access to Lake Michigan. Boating provides a very healthy outdoor activity, and it's the perfect opportunity for our community to engage with each other out in nature. The Yacht Club looks forward to repairs and improvements that occur in the future at the Park Avenue boating facility. Thank you so much for all of your efforts.
Okay. Do we have any other people with the raised hand function?
Yep, so now it would be her husband, Steve, and we'll unmute him.
Hey, everyone. I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. So Laura pretty much said it all there. I'm speaking on behalf of the power boaters. I think this is fantastic. Everybody is really excited in the powerboat community. We thank the Park District for looking at a temporary fix for this. We think that's the right move. I would just like to add one thing that, the sooner you can broadcast this information that there will be a temporary fix and, the timing of it, that's going to make a big difference on retaining and recruiting new power boaters to the Highland Park site. So just asking for some heads up on when it will happen. And then maybe, the power boaters will all communicate this amongst the boating community, but we could also use some help from the Park District, PR machine. You guys have a good public relations machine there. And I think that would be helpful to really get that out to the boating public.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on agenda items?
Yes, so Garrett Flynn also raised his hand, so Garrett can now speak.
Okay.
Able to hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. And I want to echo Laura and Steve's comments, but I also want to thank Brian and Jeff Smith and the entire kind of Parks crew for their kind of tenacity on this. I know that the original engineer with Cardinal, fell through, and this has been quite a roller coaster trying to get an engineer to respond to this. Steve's comments about being able to communicate a plan will help to raise the confidence of the boaters, and ultimately having a plan or a commitment to a plan before March when registration opens will help to keep people from seeking launch or mooring permits elsewhere, so that we can keep the revenue in Highland Park. So also with the power boating community, anything we can do to help, please let us know. I know that I'm probably a nuisance to Brian, but we are very willing to help out however we can. And so please use us.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on agenda items?
That's it.
Okay, great.
Oh, wait, nope, I'm sorry, Council Member Annette did.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to offer my support and say I'm so impressed with how quickly everyone has moved and worked together. And
Hold on.
I think it's really important that, first of all, the Park District has a beautiful vehicle for getting out the message. But on behalf of the city, if there's anything we can do to help pass out that message even more quickly, and to use our PR people and newsletters also to get that message out in terms of dates and how it's moving along, I just wanted to offer that up. I know Brian works very closely with the city manager and people of city staff, but I just want to make sure that you know that I'm reporting it back to the city and happy to take back anything we can to help get the word out.
Okay, thank you. We really appreciate you and your continued advocacy for this between the Park District and the city. So thank you. Anybody else? Okay, has Commissioner Freeman joined us yet? Okay,
No.
I've gotten the indication that she's 35 seconds away, which is pretty specific, but I can
you cannot verify that.
I can begin and just
Can you talk slowly at the beginning and then go quicker as she comes?
yes.
Okay, so Park Avenue boating facility update, Director Carr and Executive Director Romes to present.
Yes, thank you, Vice President Grossberg. So we are going to tag team this a little bit. I'm going to begin the presentation, and then I'm going to turn it over to Director Mitch Carr. And we're going to focus our conversation on the boater loyalty program. So let me share my screen. Okay.
Can I interrupt, please? Before we get to the loyalty program, supposedly there was something sent about the temporary boat ramp repairs. I don't think I have that. And I see the South Pad project in my agenda comes before that. So is there some input on those two things? I'd like to hear that before we get to the loyalty program.
Vice President Grossberg, we can go in any order that the board wants us to go. We were going to begin with the loyalty program, but we certainly can begin with any of the three items under Park Avenue.
Well, in deference to our fearless leader, we shall start with the other agenda items first, if that's okay.
Thank you.
That is okay. Which means we will turn it over to Director Smith.
Thank you very much.
I will stop sharing my screen.
So I'm going to speak on two topics: the continued exploration of the temporary repair to the boat ramp, and also we've been exploring repair of the south storage pad. Which should I begin with? Any preference?
How about with the summer, the temporary ramp?
Okay. In just a moment, I'll pull that presentation up. Actually, let me correct that real quick, one moment.
And by the way, I apologize if there was an email that was sent that contained these two items. It's probably in the outbox and Roxanne didn't hit send. I could blame somebody.
No, Jeff will explain. This information was received today, so Jeff will explain.
One more moment. I need just one more moment to bring this up here. All right, thank you everyone for your patience there. Yeah, as was just mentioned, our goal was to report at this meeting regarding this effort. However, at one point we were questioning whether we would have the information. The firm that we've been working with, WJE, was trying to get this to us as soon as possible. However, in the end, we did not receive this until this morning. So we were able to do a quick review of the drawings and put something together quickly to share with the board as an update. But I will stress that seeing that we've just received this, we are looking into it a little more. We are still working with WJE, but this is the update we have for right now. So to step back to earlier this year when we did have the failure in the launch ramp, as everyone's aware, we did immediately explore temporary repair, which unfortunately was not feasible. We did talk to various firms. We spoke to Smith Group about this. They declined to provide drawings for this approach. We also worked with the boaters and reached out to several other engineering firms. And as was mentioned a little earlier, it was a bit of a challenge to find a firm. However, we did hire WJE, which is based out of Northbrook, to do this work. This is a firm that we have worked with in the past as well. And so what we asked them to do was look at the ramp and provide drawings for repair that would get us through portion of next year. So one of the, as I mentioned, we continue to explore this, but one of the other reasonings behind this now and reporting this now is we've now determined that with the repair or the replacement of the breakwater and boat launch is now scheduled to likely begin in fall of next year. So we wanted to continue to explore this and see if there was an option to possibly have boating next year. So once again, I will stress, as you can see in my top corner of the slide, this is a draft, and this is just providing the committee with the understanding of what the options could be. So with that said, I'll get started and say that here's a close-up of the ramp. So WJE looked at this and has come up with a proposal, and they've developed some construction documents which we would be able to bid out to provide safe launching for at least through Labor Day, which is when we would be proposing to start the larger project next year. And there are 3 items that they are recommending be repaired on the launch. The first is in this corner right here, there is a large amount of washout under the ramp. So here's a close-up of it. That section, there's a hole here, and we've done some exploration, and it goes probably about 6 feet in. So there is a void there, which obviously is a concern about the structural integrity of the ramp. So for this portion here, they would recommend that concrete be pumped into that area to fill that void. Also, the very top of the ramp right here, you can see in the close-up, this section of concrete and asphalt is not in good shape. It's more of a trip hazard. It's not a concern from structural concern of the ramp or any concern from along that lines of safety. However, it's something that we do want to maintain. And so they did include this in their drawings as well. However, we're continuing to look into this. This is something we may be able to patch internally. It is an area that Parks has prepared in the past. And so this may be a portion we may not have to hire a contractor to cover, but it's something that they have pointed out to us. And lastly, the largest portion is here. So the way the concrete ramp was constructed is you have 2 sections of concrete that were poured in place, and then you have these precast panels that were poured somewhere else and then brought on site, and they lay over cable supports, and then there's substrate underneath that supports it. And as we know, we had a washout of that material underneath, and then it collapsed. So they've surveyed the area, they've done quite a bit of exploration, and their recommendation is rather than just coming in here and filling this with concrete, what they recommend is to pour a new concrete slab in the section we're seeing here over the entire existing section, leave it in place, but pour this over it. And what would happen is in some sections like here, it would probably only be a few inches thick, whereas here it could be as much as 24 inches thick. They would also, we would, as part of the plan, we would place wire mesh through here. We would also tie that in to all of the existing concrete. So it would all adhere, and it would create a new level surface, because along here, there are drops. None of this is level, this is all shifted. So it would create a level solid surface for safe launching. And I know we've been referring to this as a temporary fix, but in this case, they feel that this fix, let's say something were to happen and we weren't pulling this out in a few months after it's being done, this could last longer. It will be a robust fix, but they feel that it's the appropriate temporary fix. We obviously asked them to, we want something that's not too overdone because we want to keep the cost down if we could do this. But once again, they felt that we need to address the entire area to do it safely. Now, we don't have any solid pricing on this, but the engineer's estimate would be approximately $30,000 to $35,000 for this work. What we would like to do is take these plans and share them with some contractors that we've worked with in the past to possibly see if we can get some pricing from them to get a better understanding of what it may cost. If it is at 30 to 35,000, we would obviously need to bid this out. If it came in under 25,000, a sealed bid would not be required. As far as a timeline for this work, our goal is obviously, if it's decided to move forward with this, we would want to have it ready for the boating season next year. It's possible that the work could be done this year, as long as it was done sometime before, probably about mid-December, is what we're thinking weather-wise. If it was decided to move forward with this and it was done next year, it's potential that we could do it as early as mid-March, but once again, weather is a major factor. So I'm going to open it up for questions right now, if there are any questions.
Okay, Commissioner Bernstein.
I wasn't going to ask any questions, but wow, this is very interesting. How long do they estimate this construction project to take?
We're thinking it would not be a really long time, probably a week or two.
And as a Band-Aid, what is the lifespan of this patch? Is it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? What are they telling you?
Well, when I discussed with them this morning, we're talking about probably a year. It could very well be longer, but I specifically asked them if they thought it would last at least a year, and they said that they felt it most likely would.
And is there a specific time of year where it's best to do it? Right now, sometimes we still get some northeasters, and I don't know how that would impact it. Is it better to do this in the spring than the fall because of the weather, or doesn't make a difference?
Yeah, no, so exactly. They felt that as long as if we were to do it this year, as long as we did it probably before mid-December, they felt that it would be fine to do it now. And one of the questions now would really is going to be availability of contractors. And also, depending on the pricing, if we had to bid this out, it's unlikely we could meet that mid-December deadline just because of the process of doing a bid.
Okay, so I guess when this comes to the board, if it does come to the board, if you could do some type of cost-benefit analysis, saying basically how much revenue you anticipate creating by doing this fix versus the cost. Obviously, there's some goodwill that goes into it also. It's not just dollars and cents, but if you could bring that information to the board, it'd be helpful.
Absolutely, and I will add one other item that I failed to mention is, as I said, our plan for our next step is to reach out to contractors and hopefully get some pricing on this. And our goal is to have that information in time for the November 18th Finance Committee, and so we hope to follow up at that time.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Kaplan.
That's no questions. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Commissioner Freeman.
Hi, well, this is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, this is exciting, and I would love to see boats launching next year so that we, once we kind of moved the anticipated construction piece for the bigger project off to after Labor Day, this is very positive news in my opinion. I look forward to hearing about the cost, and thanks for continuing to look into this, Jeff and staff. Even though it seemed like we kind of reached an impasse or ran into a wall earlier in the year. Thank you. No questions.
Okay, President Ruttenberg.
Thanks. No, I echo what Jen said, but two questions. Do we have to obtain any permits?
So no, that work was actually all done earlier when we were going through the process of trying to find an engineer who was willing to work with us on this. We were simultaneously looking into the permitting process. So we have confirmed both with the Army Corps and IEPA and also IDNR that no permits are going to be required.
Okay, good. My second question is what effect this will have on our replacement project by adding additional concrete and additional rebars in there?
Yes, this is something that Smith Group is aware that we were continuing to explore this. I have yet to share with them what this proposal is, but we will certainly be doing that. as you point out, it's really important for the contractor to understand what the conditions are when they start that larger project. So we will be sharing that with them if this is something that the committee would like us to continue to pursue.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions. I endorse doing this.
Thank you.
I have no further questions. You guys covered most of the good stuff. So I do also want to say, appreciate your tenacity and grit when it comes to finding a solution, because we need to launch next summer. Okay.
Wait, Terry.
Yes.
Just to be complete, would you just poll the members of the board?
Okay. What is our consensus, or can we reach consensus about moving this forward to the full board? That's what you're looking for?
Yes, I vote yes.
I vote yes.
Okay.
Yes, for me.
Okay.
I'm sorry to be the contrarian, but I still would need to see the cost benefit analysis. I still need to see the numbers before I give it a green light.
Okay. And I'm a go for it. Yes. So we will of course consider this when it comes to the board when we get the actual numbers in. But it seems like people are feeling good about having this go with some reservation and some cost benefit analysis. Okay, so this would be a good time now to move on to the South Storage Lot Repair Project.
All right, thank you. Give me a quick moment and I'll switch my presentation here. All right, thank you. Can everyone once again see the presentation?
Thank you.
Yes, all right, perfect. So similar photo that opened the other presentation, except the orientation is a little different because we're focused on this area right here. A little tough to see, but this is the far south edge of the property of Park Avenue boating facility. And this is the storage pad referring to where sailboats were stored. You can see here that large portion of this has eroded. There was a railroad ties that served as the retaining wall for the parking lot. As the lake levels increased, there was a lot of impact to this area. Just not a proper foundation. It was not able to withstand that. And as it failed, the parking lot failed in that area. So we have reached out to several engineering firms for a proposal to design a repair to this, which would include some type of revetment and then repair of the parking lot. So here is a close-up photo of it. And as you can see here, these are the railroad ties I was mentioning. And this pad went out probably about here. It was a pretty large area that's been lost. And here is another shot of it. And you can see here, this is kind of where the lot used to be. Now, for this work, there are a couple of things we really need to pay close attention to. One is this right here. This indicates that the North Shore Water Reclamation District has a sewer pipe that runs through this area. It runs right through here. And so any work we do, we have to be very, very cautious of that and work around that. So as I mentioned, what we're looking to do is bring an engineering firm on to design this, basically bring us to construction documents so we can bid this out and hopefully get this repair done. We are aiming to have this repair done next spring. So we reached out to a few firms, and as I mentioned, we received 3 proposals. The first was from V3. This is a firm that we are working with right now at Millard Park. Their proposal to bring us to construction documents was $40,400. We also reached out to Smith Group, who the board is very familiar with, and their proposal was $35,350. And lastly, we reached out to Aecom, and their proposal was $32,500. Now, Aecom is a firm that the district has worked with in the past. However, it's been a number of years. So they were one who their proposal we were very pleased with. We felt that they seemed very qualified and had a very good approach to this. However, we did look into references. They work very closely with the city, and so we did speak to the city, and they spoke very highly of them as well. So staff would be recommending that we move forward with Aecom for this project. So I'm going to provide just a brief overview of Aecom's cost proposal. The way they broke it down were these different categories. So the planning phase, I'm just going to go through this really quickly. They'll be working on the regulatory, so permits will be required. That's going to be one of the big factors with timeline for this. We anticipate the permits could take 2 to 3 months, but if it was a slower process, then that may not allow us to construct this or try to move forward with this as soon as we hope to. The rest of their breakdown here, they have coastal engineering, some structural engineering, some civil design with the parking lot itself. They'll be doing the actual bid documents. And then it brings us to our total of $32,500. So as far as potential timeline for this project, so we're sharing this tonight with the hope that we will receive consensus so that we could bring this to the full board at the November 16th meeting for approval. And at that point, we'd enter into an agreement with Aecom. We would work with them. We'd also work very closely with the city on this. We'd work with the North Shore Water Reclamation District with the line there. And we would also come back to the board and report on how this is going. But we'd like to bring ourselves to construction documents with the goal of being able to release those in March for a bid, which would allow us to hopefully do construction in April and May of next year. And with that said, I'm happy to take questions.
Okay. Yeah, my first thought was about that sewer pipe and it seems to me that there'd be an advantage to work with this Aecom if they've worked with the city and they're aware of that pipe and the kind of the challenges that go along with that. So I was happy to hear that they have a positive relationship with the city because it seems like we're going to have to work pretty strongly with them. President Ruttenberg, question.
Oh, well, thank you. Do we have any ballpark idea of what this cost might be?
We have $200,000 budgeted in the capital plan in 2022 for the construction. This was based on some very preliminary discussions we had with Smith Group some time back. And so that's the most we have right now, but that's one of the other reasons we are eager to get this process started so we can get a true understanding of what the cost may be.
But to get an idea of the cost, we have to spend $32,000.
We need to explore options and designs and come up with the design. So as part of their proposal, it would be looking at some options for design and also coming up with the opinion of probable construction costs for that option.
Okay, then let me ask, if we do nothing, what happens?
Well, we have seen over time that the erosion has continued. We've certainly lost more of the parking lot than from our original failure some time back. But additionally, that area would simply stay unusable. And I know that it is utilized for storage of sailboats. And so we would lose that opportunity for that revenue and for obviously offering that service in that area.
Well, that takes us back to the point that Cal raised on the other issue of the cost benefit. I mean, if it's merely to provide additional pads for a couple sailboats to be parked for $250,000, I'm not sure the benefit that we get for that under our current scenario with, temporary fix at Park Avenue, waiting for some larger scale project. I don't have any other questions. I just question the need to do this now.
So for this also, while it is barricaded off, one could say that there could be concern about safety in this area. And as I mentioned, it could get worse over time, but we do have it securely barricaded off right now. But I will say that unlike the boat ramp, this would be a long-term fix. This would what we consider a permanent fix likely would be a sheet pile wall that would provide that support. So this would be something where we'd come in and fix it, and it would not be something we'd be turning around and pulling out, similar to the boat launch that we were just talking about.
Now, truly, I understood that we wouldn't do something half-baked for this, but again, I question whether this is the right time or the environment to do it. I don't have any other questions on this.
Okay, Commissioner Freeman.
Hey, Jeff, is it safe to say that the longer we would wait to put a fix here, the more expensive it may be? You know, that seems to be a theme.
Yes, I would certainly say that. I can't predict the future, but I would say that it's not going to make itself better. It's only going to get worse.
Do we generate any revenue from the sailboats stored on the pad?
My understanding is yes, but I believe that's going to get covered in Mitch's presentation. So I'm going to leave that for him to really answer.
Okay, perfect. It's one of those things for me personally that we have capital money, capital improvement funds budgeted for this in the plan. It's something that we had intended to do. We have in the past not spent some of that money, which may or may not have led to further deterioration of the property, and we are looking to make significant repairs to it. So I would prefer personally to fix something sooner rather than later. And I am very optimistic about the future of the Park Avenue boating facility. So I am in favor of exploring this and looking to do something sooner rather than later. Thanks. No more questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kaplan.
I will hold off until I hear the cost benefit analysis at the next meeting.
Okay, Commissioner Bernstein.
Again, I wasn't going to ask any questions, but I'm sorry. If for some reason, I'm usually a half full guy versus half empty, but if for some reason the park board decides not to go forward with a new breakwater or whatever you want to call that structure, how would that impact this project?
If the structure will remain in place as it does, the barge right now, I don't see it impacting it in any way. Because the new structure that's going to go in will be the same length as well, which is really what creates protection along the shoreline.
What I'm saying is, if that project doesn't go forward for whatever reason, how does that impact this project?
I don't see it impacting it. I would assume if we didn't move forward that the breakwater would stay, breakwater that's there, the barge would stay in place. If we were to remove that barge and that the protection it does provide, then it would impact this area more. But at this point, I don't see it impacting.
Okay, so you're basically looking to recapture part of this boat storage or parking lot, whatever you want to call it. That's the goal of this, is to recapture the area that we lost.
That's correct, and to basically put in a proper revetment that's necessary to stop further erosion, because it certainly has continued further west, but it could continue. Who knows? Over time, it could continue further north and take up more of that area and become even a larger problem.
So that takes me to my next question. Is this being done? Two questions. Is this being done to the south property line of the beach?
Yeah, it would be to the property line. That's correct.
And then as you meander north, is there any other future projects, or is there any other work needed to protect north of this area?
So in this effort, if you could see the photo here, we're talking about this section right here. And I will say this aerial photo is an old photo. It has extended further than this. But in this photo, you can see we wouldn't just be putting the revetment here. We would look into extending it some way down here to provide protection, because you can see there is some erosion that occurred in this area as well. And that would be something that we'd be looking to the engineer for their recommendation on how far down it would need to go.
So the extending it south into that bush area, that green area, that's not within the scope of the proposal that you brought to us tonight. So that could be I guess, an addition that we may hear once the engineer takes a look at this?
Well, the cost for the proposal we're talking about would include the scope of exploring the entire area. The engineer is aware of the property line. We would be looking for something where it would go to our property line, but obviously it would not just end there. It would be something that would be thoughtfully designed so that we wouldn't have erosion issues, let's say in this corner of our property. But it would go from our property line down as far north as they recommend.
And have you had any consultation with the property owner to the south and how potentially this can impact their beach?
No, we have not yet. That would be part of the process once we brought Aecom or our firm on.
Okay. All right. So obviously, I appreciate the fact that you're going to reach out to the neighbor to the south, that this is not being done in a vacuum. Maybe even the neighbor to the south, just how it will not negatively impact the downstream, so to speak. And then I look forward to hearing how this, whether this is going to be a larger project and this will have to creep north, because when's the timeline of this hearing about that? Whether this potentially can expand further north if you find that it's necessary to protect that area.
Unfortunately, I can't give an exact timeline at this moment, but once if we were to receive approval to begin working with Aecom, we'd start working with them immediately after approval. And then over the next few months, we would be working through that process. So I would hope in a month or two, or probably just about a month, we would have an understanding of what those preliminary designs are looking like. And it would be through that entire process. And as I mentioned, if we worked with Aecom, they would be coming to the board at some point and sharing progress, similar to what we've been doing with the breakwater process with Smith Group.
Okay, well, if it's the consensus of the board to move forward with this project, I would like, when it comes back to the board, just a little bit more, just more scope, so to speak, and where you think, if it's just going to be limited to the red lines that are on my screen, or you think it may also creep to the north. And if you can give us some type of analysis about that, that'd be helpful, because if there's additional erosion happening to the north, then it becomes it becomes, in my mind, it becomes a different project, because we're protecting more tableland at that point. So I don't know what the risks are and how, if there's any issues there. So I'd like to have, because again, to talk to what Barney earlier said, going to the cost benefit analysis, if it's benefiting more tableland, preserving more, it may be a little more persuasive to me to do this project now.
I can say with confidence that the scope of Aecom's work would be to explore revetment that goes beyond this red line. This was simply showing where the parking lot used to be and a goal to rebuild that. So it would go into this area. The exact limit, I can't say. I wouldn't be able to say until Aecom started their work.
I just want to make sure that's within the scope of Aecom's work.
Yes,
to look at that.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
I know Commissioner Freeman has another question, but before we jump into that, Cal's made several points about worries to the north and south. Do we have any worries to the west? What about the area that is sloping down, encroaching on that parking lot from that direction?
Are you asking about the bluff here?
Yeah.
Well, I will say that and I apologize, just the aerial I have is not as recent, but it's not threatening the bluff at this time. It isn't that far back.
Okay, so there's space between the western edge of this parking lot and the
this is a much more recent photo here. It's hard to kind of extrapolate, but you can see here, this is definitely a more recent photo. And so I would say the failure is probably about here now.
Well, okay, I guess I'm just talking about erosion from the bluff. Is there a challenge from the erosion of the bluff coming from the west, infecting the westernmost part of this parking lot?
Oh, I see. Not that I'm aware of. I don't believe we're experiencing anything off the bluff causing challenges here. I'm not aware of that.
Okay, if we could just look into that too, because I know we have, water coming into the the clubhouse and things like that from there. I just don't know how close
Sure.
the western edge of that parking lot is to the eastern edge of the bluff, I guess is what I'm asking.
Understood.
Okay, Commissioner Freeman.
Thanks. So I hear a couple of things when we talk about cost benefit analysis, especially from you, Cal. I hear cost benefit analysis, which can mean a couple of different things. So I'm interested maybe in giving the district staff a little more clarity. Does that just mean, you know, what revenue do we get from parking a boat versus the cost to fix a parking pad? Or, you know, it sounds like you're open to the more broader approach, or the more maybe people that are affected in Highland Park, not just a few boats. That's more interesting to us. What would it take to get us to support this? Because the district is putting time and effort and asking us for approval to move forward with something. So I just kind of wanted to ask a little bit, what does that cost benefit analysis look like? Because it would have been different when we had 80 or 100 voters versus 50, 40, 30, or whatever it is dwindling to at this point, simply because the amenity isn't there. So I'm more interested in, like, what does it take? What do they have to present to us at this meeting for this to work? Because I think it's really important. If anyone could sort of share what that would look like. To you or to Brian or Barney, but yeah, for sure.
I can just speak for myself. I look at this differently than the previous agenda item with regard to the temporary boat launch. I'm looking at this as is protecting, you know, the toe of the bluff, and how much, and whether, you know, I'm less, I'll be honest, I'll be less concerned about the actual storage of sailboats on this area and the revenue that could be derived from that. And I'm more concerned about doing a fixer that's going to be global, that's going to protect the toe of the bluff, and whether it's going to the north, whether obviously it's not going to the south because we own that property, but whether they took into account that if there's other protections, the revetment needs to be needs to be extended to the north to protect that area, because obviously that area is precious. So I'm not so concerned about the amount of revenue, because it seems like it's nominal, the revenue that's derived down there from that. And this is a permanent fix versus a temporary fix in the previous agenda item. So I look at it differently with the different lenses. So I guess it's the long-winded way me is saying is I'm trying to protect what we have at the toe of the bluff, and whether this project is sufficient to do that. And that's what I'm looking at here. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Does anybody else have a different?
I don't want to speak for Barney, so Barney can speak.
Right, that's what I was going to say. So,
No, thank you. I don't want us to make an improvement to this area for the purpose of assuring that there would be boat storage available at that site. There's a lot of factors that we still haven't resolved about what we're doing there, and it may be that we'll never get 20 boats parked there to pay for this. But I think Cal's point is a more prescient one. And it may be the best thing to do is not pave it over when we're done. But I think Cal hit the nail on the head, that there is an erosion factor that's going to possibly move it back further and further and further, and then start taking away from our actual operational area. So I'm more on Cal's page. I'm not thinking of this as a revenue generator by the sailboats that may or may not be parked there.
anything else, Commissioner Freeman?
No, that's it. I just wanted to sort of clarify what maybe, staff should explore so that we can resolve this piece of it. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so
Well, wait, let me just add, it may very well be that the staff should also explore alternatives to sheet pile. I mean, our neighbor has the riprap there, and we shouldn't just let the engineers come up with a put-in sheet pile that's very expensive if there's another way of assuring some protection.
Yeah, exactly. So just to reiterate, that's exactly what we're asking for consensus for, is to bring on an engineer to explore all of this, to get a better understanding of, if we didn't do something, Our goal here is to provide protection to Park District, to the property along the launch, and as I mentioned, a little further north. I just can't answer at this time how far north, but we certainly identified and included in their scope to explore that. And as far as what it's going to be, we've spoken to them about it. One option is sheet pile, which I just provided as an example, but it's not the decision. We don't know what that'll be. That would only come up once they begin their coastal analysis and start to explore preliminary design. They'll look at different options and they'll be making a recommendation what the most appropriate one is.
So
And I'm sorry, let me just say, follow up. And Jeff, to reach that point, how much of the $32,000 has to be spent?
I could talk to them about going to a certain level. I don't have that cost right now. The way it's shared, you saw the way they broke it out. They broke it out a little differently.
Yeah.
I could do that, and we could report back to the board on that.
Thank you.
Okay, so Executive Director Romes, what are you looking for us as a committee regarding this today?
Yes, thank you. So we are looking for consensus from the Lakefront Committee to proceed with this proposal and bring it to the November 16th Park Board meeting. We will, of course, bring to that meeting the answers to some of the questions that have been asked this evening, but our intention is to bring it to that meeting with this firm and seek approval at that meeting.
Okay, so it's costing us $0 to get us from here to that next meeting.
Yes, we're just looking for consensus that we want to use Aecom and that we want to bring this proposal in answering these questions as well to the November. We want consensus to move forward with Aecom to bring this to the November 16th meeting.
Okay, so can I just go around the board? Tell me your feelings right now. Commissioner Kaplan?
Yep.
Commissioner Freeman?
Yes.
Commissioner Bernstein?
Yes.
President Ruttenberg?
I say yes also.
Vice President Grossberg? That's me. I'm good. So yes, we would look forward to hearing the details of this at our next meeting, full meeting. Okay, any other discussion on the South Storage Lot Repair Project? Great. Now let's cycle back to the Voter Loyalty Program. Director Carr and Executive Director Romes to present.
Great, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know if you see my screen. Should see Park Avenue Boating Facility.
Yes.
Yes? Okay, great. Okay, so yes, we almost this evening want to circle back on our discussions in regards to the voter loyalty program. We've had numerous conversations over the past year with the Park Avenue Working Group, as well as in our Lakefront Committee meetings and in some of our Finance Committee meetings. And so this is our recommendation to bring to you this evening for consensus to move forward. So I'm going to recap just a few things. First of all, the funding objectives, we've seen this numerous times. Can you hear me okay? Sorry. We've seen this numerous times over the past year. Our two objectives consistently have been to create a breakwater and ramp replacement plan that is consistent with our mission of enriching community life and appreciation of the natural world. Of course, our financial policies, and then the Park Avenue Working Group's vision and addressing long-term sustainability of Park Avenue. Also, we wanted to create a funding model that is practical, realistic, and fiscally responsible, both in the short term for the replacement of the breakwater, but also the board was very clear that we wanted to ensure long-term future improvements that support the Park Avenue site master plan that was approved by the Park Board earlier in August. So consistent with those objectives, I just want to recap some of the costs that we've talked about. The breakwater and ramp, I know there is currently a range of costs associated with that project from Smith Group because of the 25% contingency. For modeling purposes, we chose $2.5 million. This is what we're basing this project on at the current time. The phase one improvements was based on an estimate of $1.1 million. This is the grant that we have applied for on the north side with the boardwalk and the parking lot improvements. Then the south parking pad repairs. This is what Jeff just presented on, for a total of $3.8 million at that site. The funding that we've been using to fund these projects, the $2 million we've talked about with the debt issuance that the board just approved a few weeks ago, which was $2 million. We've been seeking donations for the breakwater and boat ramp from the community. We've been very successful in the recent weeks, and so we're continuing that effort towards that goal. The IDNR boat access grant we have applied for as well, which is $200,000, and the OSLAD grant is $400,000. And then we do have about $900,000 that would just come out of our fund balance from our capital plan that we have right now. So the total would equal out to 3.8. Again, I just made some notes down here. Those grants we should find out in winter or spring of 2022. And then the fundraising goal obviously is a little bit subject to change. A lot of this we don't know until we get through the construction documents, the final engineering, and then once we bid this project out, what the actual cost will be. So all of these are really just estimates at this point. So the debt issuance, the user fees has been discussed a lot, and the loyalty program has been a portion of that in effort to support the board's decision to use that $2 million towards this project from that debt issuance. So there are really two major objectives that we've identified for the loyalty program. The first one is to validate long-term community need and ensure long-term community use at the site. So obviously we know there's a need at that site. There's been voting there for years. We've heard from voters at our meetings. So we know there is a community need. How wide and how far and how large that need is, we don't exactly know, but by doing this loyalty program, we are hoping to have the boating community to commit to their loyalty to this as well, so the board can feel confident in moving forward with this project as a portion of the justification. Also to ensure sustainable revenue at the site. So when we talk about a cost-benefit analysis, certainly the benefit can go beyond dollars, but in this case, we are looking at dollars to help support the $2 million debt issuance. So Mitch is going to talk about user fees here in just a minute, but the plan is to do a market adjustment in 2022 for boat storage and launch. $1,000 to store, $650 to launch. So if you launch and store, that's $1,650. We've been well below the market. This brings us up to the market. Mitch will go through those fees for 2022. And then the boat ramp improvement fee. So we've added on a 10% launch fee through that 20-year term of the debt issuance payoff. So anytime you pay to launch a powerboat, store and launch, or just launch, there will be a 10% fee. And then also fees would increase minimally 4%. We've actually modeled 5%. Mitch will walk through that a little bit, and or market adjustment. So onto the loyalty program. What this loyalty program essentially does is it requires voters to engage in a long-term agreement to store and launch. And so we've modeled a 5-year program and a 10-year program. And what that does for the voter is it gives them a fixed rate throughout the term of their agreement. So that gives them assurance that their rate, they know what their rate is going to be for the next 5 or 10 years. For the Park District, it gives us assurance that we will have users who are going to benefit from the improvements that we're investing in. It does require an upfront fee, and that upfront fee for 5-year agreement is $500, and for the 10-year is $1,000. And then they would also pay the boat ramp improvement fee, that 10% that I talked about of the launch fee, that 10% will be calculated again on the 2022 rate. So it will be fixed in and they would pay that up front. So what this does is, again, it provides that commitment up front in the sense of a sort of deposit, so they can't just walk away from their commitment, because there is still the annual seasonal fee that has to be paid. The difference is their fee is fixed. If you don't do this, you are subject to whatever our fee increase is. So I'm going to have Mitch go ahead and take over the microphone and talk about our seasonal user fees and the market comparison.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, so as Brian mentioned, one of the things that we obviously had to do in studying this was to do our market comparison, which we do on an annual basis. But in this case, you know, we looked at a lot of different categories. You can see on here, we looked at our small vessel, which is labeled here as tier and cable, and we're really right in the market with some of our comparisons. And of course, the comparison we're using here is North Shore communities that offer similar services. So Lake Forest, Winnetka, Evanston, they're providing an opportunity for small craft sailing alongside motorized power boat or personal watercraft. Our motorized launch only, as you can see here, we're a little high, not much, but a little high on the market there in the resident category. Where we're really trailing the market, as Brian mentioned, was the motorized storage and launch. So we saw that as the best opportunity for us to make a more significant impact and bring us up to market level, in fact, a little above the market level, but also allow people to lock in fixed at that rate while the market continues to move up over a 5 to 10 year period. You can see some of the comparisons. Obviously, Lake Forest is probably the most comparable for us. Very similar in launch, very similar number of storage spaces. Winnetka, which charges a very high fee, is a unique situation. They have very limited storage. They only have 8 spaces. And they recently also did a launch improvement project last year. And in their project, what they decided to do was do a boat storage license, similar to the loyalty program, but in a significantly different way, where they auctioned and lotteried off these spaces. So the fee that you see there is still the annual fee, but that's on top of what they already paid to just get one of these 8 spaces. So Brian, if you want to move on to the next slide. The recommended fee increases, as we showed, was a pretty good size increase for residents. It was $460 and $240 for non-residents. One of the reasons that we actually chose that route was we believe that the majority of our users are residents right now, so this gets us back into that market comparison. And if we have spaces left available, our $2,000 mark for the non-resident rate will actually make us potentially a more viable option for people in non-residents from other communities who are looking for storage. This graph really will show you the comparison for just residents on what the cost would be for the loyalty program versus the seasonal cost. So you'll see in the 2022 cost comparison what the seasonal user would pay. That would include all of the boat ramp improvement fees, whereas the loyalty member would be paying a much larger sum up front, because it's going to include not only their seasonal fee for the year, but also those 2 fees that Brian mentioned, the $500 or $1,000 on a 5 or 10 year term, and also all the upfront cost of the boat improvement fees for the 5 or 10 year period. So in total, if a loyalty member wanted to have a store and launch for a power boat, it would be $2,475 for a 5 year or $3,300 for a 10 year. And as you go along these other columns, you see the 5 year cost analysis. And as Brian had mentioned, we used a 5% because we just don't know what the market's going to do. We'll minimally do 4%, but in certain years we may have to do a little bit higher. And over the 5-year period, you don't see a large financial gain for a loyalty member. So really the 5-year is definitely, I'm committed. I'm not really getting a financial gain here, but I know I'm going to be around for 5 years. I want to lock in my rate. I'll give you a small, a upfront cost. And I also have a less of a 5-year commitment in case I decide to stop boating, or I have a life event and I need to move. So the cost to them is not a big of loss if that one of those events happens. For the 10-year, you can see certainly a much bigger financial benefit to do it, but in turn, it's also double the commitment from the financial piece up front, but also double the commitment in the length of your term. Brian, you want to move to the next? So this is some of our program targets in the timeline. We believe our goal targets for the loyalty program is listed on this page would both show a boater commitment to long-term sustained usage for the powerboat and personal watercraft users. And we'd be able to attain this in the timeline below. We believe that the 5-year loyalty member is a very attractive from both the upfront commitment and as I mentioned, just in case of the duration. One thing I failed to mention on the previous slide was we haven't really looked at just for launch only. That could be something attractive. The challenge for us on launch only is that the fee is a much smaller fee, and that 5% increase each year, it would have to be a fairly small upfront fee to really have any type of financial benefit. So, but we still are working on that. We still want to see if that's an option for us. So, Brian, if you go through kind of that full schedule, the powerboat and launch, we have a target of 15. Personal watercraft and launch for a 5-year, we have a target of 3, and powerboat launch, we have a target of 5. In total, right now today, we have 34 powerboat or personal watercraft and launch spaces available. So this is certainly a significant portion of those. You'll see in here also in the timeline, we have really specified this around a resident loyalty program. It's not to say that we wouldn't offer this out to non-residents, but we want to provide the option to the residents first. If we're not seeing a large commitment, we could open this up to non-residents maybe in early January to see if they would want to be in a loyalty program and lock in some rates. We would have a deadline of January 31st to get all of our commitments and meet these target goals. At that point, we would require the seasonal user fee to be due in March. And all of those that have paid their loyalty seasonal user fee and made their upfront commitments, that would allow us to know how many spots do we have left and offer the remaining spots to residents first and then non-residents that are not part of the loyalty program. If you could go to the next, this is just a depiction of all of the fee schedule that we've worked on for the budget. Commissioner Freeman, I know you had a question about the south parking pad. The primary user is going to be the sailboat / catamaran storage. We do have a long-term objective with phase 1 of moving some of our personal watercraft into that area. So that would expand our ability to offer more spaces if we put personal watercraft in that area. But for just next year, we have 24 spots on the south parking lot for storage. The erosion has caused us to lose 11 of those spots, so about half. So you could kind of, if we just did the math here, we're talking about $10,000 to $13,000 of revenue that we're not able to secure right now. And as far as what we've lost in the last year, the erosion has definitely, while it's subsided because the lake levels went down, we still have lost some spaces, particularly during some bad storm events. This past year, we lost 2 more spaces to be able to use. So it went from 9 last year to now 11 unusable spaces for us. So I won't go into much detail here on these fees. I just wanted to kind of show you so you could kind of digest it. My last slide here before I hand it right back over to Brian is just to give you a quick snapshot of what the budget summary looks like right now for the boating facility. This includes the $118,000, $750 transfer that would be done for the debt issuance. This revenue is based off of the fees and charges I've just kind of outlined, including those loyalty targets as well. And with that, we still show a small surplus here after the transfer for the debt issuance of a surplus of a little over $7,000. So Brian, do you want to talk the timeline? And I can also take questions after you finish.
Yep, just had to find my mic there. So this is the last slide, and then we can certainly take questions. So our goal is to wrap up the loyalty program and the agreement details this month, so that, as Mitch said, we can release this program in December and start accepting boaters to be a part of that program. Just to put this in perspective, with the breakwater and boat ramp, that is anticipated to go to bid in January. So we would want these loyalty commitments by the end of January. We would also want to reach our fundraising goal by the end of January. Obviously, the sooner we reach these commitments, the more confidence we will have that there is funding when we receive the bids, and that there is commitment from the community to be at this facility and using this facility, in addition to what we already know. But then we would bring those bids likely for approval in February 22. So at that point, we would have all the information that would help us understand the whether you want to call that a cost benefit or whatnot. We would have that information at that time. We also do anticipate hearing about the boat access grant hopefully in February. We will hear, but as Jeff has mentioned in previous presentations, we don't know when that's going to happen. They release that when they have found the time to do the work that they need to do to award it and release it, and then there has to be an agreement. So we never know the exact date of that. But the ramp construction, we anticipate after Labor Day, and then it would be open in spring of 2023. So with that, I do, I think that about covers it. There were a couple other bits of information that I'd be happy to share about how we might set this up as a fund, and we could do that at the finance meeting. And also, I do have a cost estimation which shows if we didn't do those two previous projects, how it might affect the budget in 2022. But for now, I'll just answer questions on the loyalty program.
Okay, President Ruttenberg.
Okay, on the loyalty program, what is the mechanism we have if somebody commits to doing something for 10 years and they stop paying after 2 because they move away?
What is the mechanism for?
How do we enforce this?
So they will have an agreement that will be drafted. It has already been drafted, but essentially their upfront payment guarantees sort of like a deposit that we get that money up front. So if they were to not pay, we would open their spot to somebody else at full price.
So we're not making this an absolute commitment that they will pay the money over 10 years.
Yeah, and Mitch,
we have no for we're not. I'm not saying we should go and sue a boater, but
you really can't. Every agreement has to have an out. So our out would be for the benefit, or the penalty would be they would not get back their upfront payment, which would include their boat improvement fee of the 10% that they pay up front. So it's the same thing with like a fitness membership. There can be a penalty, but you can't prevent someone from getting out of an agreement.
You lose your security deposit?
You would lose everything you paid up front.
Well, okay.
And then we would open the spot to somebody else.
So why don't we increase the security deposit and make it something meaningful?
So
I'm just looking at this and I'm saying, okay, so I spend an extra $300 and until then I move away and I say, okay, it's in the cost of my house when I moved away. But okay, I put that aside. I'm not going to get into all the issues I have with this. But I have broader issues with this project, and I don't think I want to get into it right now. I just go on to somebody else.
All right, Commissioner Freeman.
I don't have any questions about the program. I do appreciate the spirit of looking to, I mean, like, hey, if I have a boat and I'm in Highland Park, this is a perfect situation for me. Is this loyalty deal transferable to someone else if you do decide to move? I mean, that would be one way to continue the payment and fill the spot without having to advertise or hunt down another boater or whatever. But, you know, this question that I saw was in the chat, so I thought I'd ask it.
Yeah, we did look at a whole bunch of different models, and when that larger upfront commitment, we were looking at more of the transferable pieces. With this smaller upfront commitment, we don't have a transfer type agreement. If we do lose that boater, one opportunity that it presents in opening up a spot is also bringing that new boater in at the market rate, which would be obviously a lot more revenue for us.
Yep, it makes sense to me. I just wanted to ask since I saw it in the chat. Okay, no, I have no other questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Bernstein.
First off, with regard to the previous agenda item, we talked about that potential spending $200,000 on that south pad. Is that number included in the $900,000 that was on the first slide, or the first or second slide with regard to this $3.8 million?
Yes.
Right there, yeah, number 5. So is that $900,000, that includes the $200,000 we were talking about in the previous agenda item?
Correct.
So if we took out that, if that's a separate line item on the 5-year capital plan, if that's independent of doing this project, so we could take whatever that amount is and we can subtract it from there because that's coming out of a different fund. Am I reading this wrong or?
Yeah, this slide depicts the entire site based on the objectives that were mentioned in the beginning, to not just address the boat ramp, but to also address the entire site. So that's why all of this is inclusive in this slide. But the loyalty program is specifically.
I don't want to talk about the loyalty program right now. I want to talk about this because what I want to make sure is we're not spending dollars twice. And what I heard in the last presentation, at least our Director Smith was making the recommendation to us that independent of whether the boat launch gets done or not, or the breakwater gets built, the staff was recommending that we still do this project because we're trying to protect the toe of the bluffs there for whatever that use is. So if that's the case, I just want to make sure that we're not spending dollars twice. We're allocating money because we're looking at this big picture of how much these things are going to cost. And we have this 5-year capital plan that we're working on and we approved. And and what I heard in the previous agenda item is the $200,000 in that 5-year capital plan. And I want to make sure that that we're not that when you're allocating money that we're not allocating dollars. We're double allocating, so to speak.
Correct. This is what's reflected in the 5-year capital plan.
So my suggestion is this $900,000? Is that for other capital projects down there that are independent of the boat launch, or is that just $200,000 was independent?
So the 7 plus if you took out the 2, it'd be 700, and the 700 plus the 400 is the 1,100 for the phase 1 improvements including that boardwalk and north parking lot.
Okay, so I'm confused, but if this ever gets brought back to the finance committee or something, can you just clarify what's 5-year capital plan that shouldn't be included in this budget, and whether it's how it should be, how you're allocating the money, because I'm confused. Okay.
Sure.
With regards to the loyalty program, I mean, I don't really have an opinion or really a question. I guess my question is that I get the goal of it is tell me what the goal of the program is. Is it to help fund this project, or is it to create a buy-in by the boaters, or both?
Correct. Both.
Okay.
So the objectives are here on the screen. It's essentially, we heard this in our meetings with the Finance Committee as well as the Lakefront Committee meeting and our board meetings, is that if the board and Park District are going to make an investment in this, we want to ensure that there's going to be a commitment that there will be long-term sustainable use of the site, and then also ensure that there's a sustainable revenue source to support this project.
Okay, so I know we talk about this all the time with the tax levy, where if we don't levy the full amount, then we lose money on the as it rolls over. Have you done the analysis of what it's going to cost the district, assuming that this is a huge success and there's a demand, what it's costing the district to do the loyalty program, and on the other hand, what's the number it's benefiting the people who sign up for the loyalty program? Have you done that analysis?
So what it's benefiting the boaters who do the loyalty program
over 10 years. Over 10 years.
Is essentially what we show here. So the difference between the 18 and the 21. So if you do the loyalty, you're essentially saving $3,400. That would be the benefit to the boater. And we've modeled out 20 years what this would look like for the Park District, and it would generate a surplus over the $2 million plus interest on the bond issuance.
Run that past me one more time.
It would the revenue associated with Park Avenue in our model would exceed the dollars necessary to pay off that $2 million debt issuance, including interest. So there would be a surplus at Park Avenue.
Got it. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to say is that the two major and I consider this a major project. The two major projects that I've been involved with since I've been on the board were Rosewood Beach and Sunset Valley Golf Club, and I would say both have been a huge success. And I have no reason to believe that if the board decides to go forward with this project, that it won't also be a huge success, because one thing the Park District does is that when they undertake these projects, they do it right. And I am confident that if we decide to go forward, and we haven't made that determination yet, that this will be a success and that we will realize these numbers. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bernstein. The first thing I asked Executive Director Romes when I saw this updated program thing is, what kind of buy-in do we have in terms of, or what kind of feedback do we have from the voters on this? In other words, did they have a major hand in helping create this? And he assured me that they have been. It would be great to get a little bit more information about that from the board, like how is this changed to reflect the will of the voters?
Well, I'll do my best to answer your question again, Vice President Grossberg. So we did propose a loyalty program. I think it was earlier in maybe March of this year, and it did require a much higher upfront fee, and we actually had some higher market adjustments as well. And through a series of meetings with the Park Avenue Working Group, as well as some discussions with some voters, we feel that we found a balance that, again, creates a win-win, where that addresses the objectives that we've stated, ensuring that there is a commitment from the voters. Obviously, the longer there's a commitment from a voter 10-year, the greater the benefit is, and the greater assurance that we have that there will be sustainable revenue and sustainable use of that site. So we've gone through a few different iterations of this, and I feel confident that while it may not be exactly what every person you may ask would think is the right exact way to do it, this is the most appropriate balance that meets both of those objectives.
Great. So, I mean, this is what what I was hoping to hear, because obviously the voters communicate with each other, and there's nothing that's going to be said here at the meeting that can't be verified by their own meetings with each other. So it's great to hear that. And I'm reading Chad's comment now. So thank you, Chad, for that, because that's what I've been looking for all along, is to see, are we headed in the right direction with this? Because without an enforcement mechanism, much along the line of what President Ruttenberg was sort of alluding to, we basically have faith to go on. And so I have greater faith knowing that we have voters on board and who've had a voice in what we are crafting as a district. So that's really important to me. Getting back to Chad for a second, at a previous meeting, he had said, or it was perhaps an email, he had said something about the powerful storms and the flooding that's happening and its effect on the boardwalk. I know that that's not what we're talking about right now. I'm wondering if we'll have a chance to get an answer. I'm not sure I saw an answer to that.
Yeah, there's no answer on that right now because we do have, again, money in the 2022 capital budget to begin the engineering for that project. Every single project, especially the ones along the lakefront, you really don't know. Your opinion of cost does not become as realistic until you actually get into the engineering, until you actually get a coastal engineer and you get a better answer on what's realistic and what's needed, what's sustainable, and what the risks are. So it's not an engineered master plan. And so that'll be the first step that we do in the first or second quarter next year, is begin that process to determine, again, the answer to that question.
Okay.
But we believe, based on, again, we use an architect and a firm that put together that master plan, who is very intimately aware of coastal management. And so they were confident that it was far enough back
Awesome.
that it wouldn't be affected. Sorry, somebody's unmuted.
I think,
All right. Have a good
Freeman.
night. Thank you.
Is that Commissioner Freeman?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
No, it wasn't, but
Okay, just heard a female voice there. Okay, and then I'm also monitoring the chat. I saw that Chad also brought up this idea of a FEMA help, government monies for the South Lot. Has there anything been done about that, or is?
Sure, I'm happy to respond to that. Yeah, we, as with pretty much all of our efforts, we were constantly looking for funding opportunities. We did actually meet with Aecom, which is an arm of FEMA, the Illinois. This was back in unfortunately early 2020, and did formally apply for some funding opportunities. But once the pandemic hit, that all kind of went to the wayside, and they never followed through with those funding opportunities, unfortunately. And we have explored other grant opportunities for this. Unfortunately, we just, similar to what we've been exploring with the breakwater, it's been challenging to find anything that's quite the right fit for our specific need here. But we will continue to explore that. And I will add that having, going to that next stage of that engineering would certainly could assist in funding opportunities if they are available for that type of fix.
I do want to add also to what Jeff said that we have written letters to Lake County specifically in regards to the American Rescue Act and the infrastructure money that was given to municipalities and to counties across the country. And park districts were not part of that funding. They did not receive any funding for infrastructure. So we have been putting out numerous requests to Lake County to see if we could be awarded some of that money to help with some of our infrastructure projects, of which Park Avenue is one of those that we've asked about. And we have yet to receive any response on that yet.
Okay, my last thing is kind of piggybacks on something Commissioner Bernstein was asking. And it has to do with, hold on, I just lost my train of thought. The breakdown, again, if you can go back to the budget on this. Keep going. Oh, wait, oh, you know, no, the bigger numbers. Keep going. That maybe is it in this presentation? With the one that has the 2 million and the 1.1 and the whole bit. That's it. So looking at anticipated funding, the debt issuance supported by user fees. Okay, so if we were, I know this isn't a great comparable, but if we were talking, like Cal was saying, the two major projects that we have done, undertook, Rosewood and the golf course, we had debt issuance to pay for those along with other different things. Is that right?
So part of funding our capital plan includes bond issuance. So the answer is yes, but there was not a bond or a debt issuance that was specifically
gotcha.
Tied to either of those projects.
Yes, understood. But whenever you make a large plan like that, you plan on how much you want to borrow, and then you try to figure out a fee that will help cover that. And I asked you, and I did request that you actually do it, but I was just wondering, is there wisdom in looking at what we had done in the past in terms of what we've borrowed as part of a larger plan, what was used on Rosewood or on the golf course, and finding out how our plan either succeeded or didn't succeed in paying for that debt issuance? Is there logic to that, or am I just a music teacher?
I would say that this is the most strategic we have ever been in regards to a debt issuance in the 12 years that I've been here. That has not been our approach in the past. We are looking at different approaches as of recently. Mostly, a lot of this started during the pandemic in trying to understand cost of service, cost benefit analysis, things of those natures, so that when we do invest into certain facilities or into certain program areas or parks, we understand that it is in line with our revenue policy, which I won't get into that policy today, but when we opened up this presentation and we talked about the objectives and building a funding model that's consistent with our financial policies have been updated, and they do reflect that there is some wisdom, if you will, to looking at the number of users at a site, the amount of fee that they pay, or the number of residents in a community that benefit from a service. There is no revenue from a playground, but we know that it's open to all 30,000 residents of the park district without a fee to participate. And that's a service that is more subsidized by, you would say, through tax dollars. So,
okay,
does that make sense? It's not the most eloquent way to say it, but that is broadly
okay
how I would say that.
I get that's just the way my mind works. Okay, all right, thank you. Anybody else on the board? I know Commissioner Kaplan had to take a work call. Anybody else on the board have anything else on the
I had
park?
one more question.
Okay,
Yeah, both Commissioner Freeman and Bernstein have their hand raised. I don't know if those are old or new, but they both have their hand raised.
okay, Commissioner Freeman?
So I get that it takes a little time, maybe not, let's not rely on the current voting community to know every single person that has a vote that may want to take part in this. So it might take a year or two to sort of build back up the awareness. We've been told it's hard to know that we have this facility, that kind of thing, maybe, right? So if you have, let's say we open it to non-residents and they do the 5-year, and then you have residents who want to get in and we don't have room. Are we only offering the 1 year to a non-resident? You know what I'm saying? Like, I would hate to come out of the gate and everybody in a area that's contiguous takes up all the spaces, and are people like, hey, I didn't know. So question on any thought to that is my first.
Yeah, Mitch, you want to answer it?
Well, I was just going to say it's a very good question. One thing that we have talked about is potentially putting caps on loyalty, right? So that we always have spaces open and available. Because we're always going to have a limit on how many spaces we're going to have for storage and launch. So that was one consideration that we had of potentially putting caps on it. And those caps could be the targets that we have right now, which is about, two-thirds of our spaces could be potentially dedicated to loyal. The rest would be open annually to residents and then on to non-residents.
Okay, that was really the one nagging question I forgot from before. So everything else can wait till our next meeting. Thank you.
Commissioner Bernstein, do you still have some questions?
I don't have a question. I know we've been at this for a long time already tonight and in other meetings, and this is really not it's not my committee, but we have several members from the community here, and if you want to open it up and take additional public comment, if you'd like,
Okay. Are we wrapped up with all 3 of the agenda items for tonight's meeting? Sounds like we are.
I have no more to present this evening. Happy to answer any of the questions from the board or follow your suit on how to take comment from the public.
Okay, so do we have any more comments from the board, President Ruttenberg?
My only comment is I want everyone to be aware that we have not approved the $2.5 million expenditure for the breakwater and ramp. That's still subject to conversation.
Is there, okay, are there people in the public that wish to address the board on any subject? Who would be monitoring that, Roxanne?
Yep, Roxanne has it. Looks like there's one.
Yep, I was gonna
few hands
say.
raised.
Okay,
So Chad Birkin raised his hand first, so why don't we go ahead and let Chad talk afterwards? It would be Garrett.
okay.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for letting me speak. As we move into the donation phase of this, where we're asking the public to donate, I'm a little hesitant in that we don't even have I'll call it a conditional approval from the board. Right now, the only approvals have been spending some engineering money. And what can we do to alleviate the concern that a possible donor would have that the board isn't fully behind this program?
I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you for your honesty.
I don't know. Okay. Anything else, Chad?
Well, can we possibly do a conditional approval that if we were to raise the $300,000 required from the public, that the board and that at that point will feel comfortable in making the investment in this property that's been active for over 75 years?
Well, no, I don't think anything can be happening in this committee anyways. I mean, this has to go to the full board. So,
yes.
Yeah. So
Understood.
Okay. You can always email Director Executive Director Romes, and he can give you more clarification on that. But I don't think we're going to be able to decide anything tonight.
Understood.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Anything else, Chad?
I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Garrett?
I think Roxanne is
Okay, no worries.
working to get there. Yeah.
Are you able to hear me? Great. So quick question, what starts on December 1st? And then related to December 1st, if that's when the loyalty program opens, I know that it'll help the community in kind of funding that program if there is a hard commitment on the temporary repair. So right now, this would help to kind of regain the confidence of the boater community that the PD is invested in having the facility open.
Okay, again, these are more for comments. We like to take the questions into, the next step so that we can think about it. So anything that you have, any residual issues you have or questions is best served with a phone call with the executive director or an email. So that's just the best way to handle these things.
Yep, and I can respond to these questions separately on email.
Thank you.
Is that okay, Garrett? I'd appreciate it.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Anybody, Roxanne, anybody else with a question or comment?
Yep, so the next person would be Chris.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I was just wondering if there's any advantage to having the temporary fix done this year as opposed to next year, if there's any worries about letting it linger until March and there would be further structural damage to the ramp that maybe cause a problem in the future. I don't know if they've looked into that, but that was something that I was thinking.
Okay, I thought this was addressed earlier in the meeting. I'm not sure. If so, maybe someone can reiterate. If not, if we can follow up.
Yeah, I can quickly answer that question. This is something we've discussed with them, and it's our understanding based on their approach to the repair that it would be unlikely that further damage over the winter would be any additional cost or any issue, seeing that they're proposing that we pour one slab over the entire area.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure. And if you have any follow-up questions or issues, an email to Jeff or to Executive Director Romes are appreciated. Roxanne, anybody else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Thank you all. We will not be going into closed session. Is there any other business from staff or board?
I apologize. I think I'm just looking for the staff is looking for a consensus from the park board to move forward with this loyalty program. We're on a very tight schedule here as December will be here before we know it. So we certainly have heard the feedback tonight, but we're looking for consensus to move forward with this structure.
With the plan?
Yes.
Right. Okay, I think we're down to 3 commissioners now. Commissioner Bernstein, you're still here?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to move forward with this plan? Is that?
I don't think this is the proper forum to make that recommendation. This is a committee, the Lakefront committee. We don't have all the board members. That direction will have to come from a park board at a park board meeting when this is listed on the agenda of a park board meeting. We have a meeting next Tuesday, right?
We do have a meeting. We could add that to the agenda next Tuesday. Yeah.
I think that's the proper times. Will be proper notice. The public will have an opportunity to provide public comment at a park board meeting with regard to this. I don't think it's proper for us to discuss and make any type of recommendation at this committee meeting.
Okay, and just to know, we certainly can do that. It's not required of board approval, but we can certainly do that. Just wanted to clarify.
Okay, I tend to agree only if only for the fact that two of our commissioners have dropped off. We had all five, and we could have really gotten some sort of consensus if we had everybody here, or not gotten consensus. Commissioner Freeman, any thoughts?
Well, consensus would be 3, but I'm going to fold to the rest of the group and say we'll put it on for next week, even though it doesn't require our approval.
Okay. All right. So I guess you have your marching orders for next Tuesday. Anything else, Executive Director Romes, that we need to establish tonight?
No, that would be it. Thank you.
Okay. Hearing that, is there a motion for adjournment?
Hang on. Councilwoman, you had your hand raised. Did you
Okay.
have anything to add before we go?
I just had a comment about the actual structure of the loyalty program, but since it's not going to go forward, I mean, the only thing I would say is from a citizen's point of view, I think it's really imperative to really show our residents and our citizens priority and give them an incentive to commit to this. And I think you really did do a nice job in terms of balancing non-residents and residents in your fee structure. But as far as really getting people to commit for the 5 years, I think you really want to incentivize them. I would love to see a greater gap between in terms of that incentive. So just when y'all are thinking about it, I think that it really does. I'd like to see as many people participating as possible. And when they're showing loyalty for 5 or 10 years, I think that's something I want to do. Just an opinion.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
Second. I guess I can second it myself. The meeting will adjourn at, I guess, 5.